Season's greetings. Welcome to the holiday edition of Noir Alley. I'm happy to bring you an unjustly obscure gem from an unlikely source, a movie that for me has become a staple of the Christmas season. It's Cash on Demand, a 1961 release from England's Hammer Studios. It's an ingenious heist film, a compelling character study, and a Christmas movie, all in one tidy package. I first showed this back in 2019, and since then I've had many people tell me it was one of their favorite discoveries on Noir Alley. And you did hear me right. This picture was made by Hammer Films, legendary for its torrential output of cinematic horror. Toward the end of the 1950s, Hammer started producing sexier and gorier updates of universal horror classics from the 30s. Hammer quickly became known as the studio that dripped blood. Films like The Curse of Frankenstein, The Mummy, and Horror of Dracula put a sanguinary spin on those moldy old monsters and made huge stars of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, who appeared in practically every Hammer horror movie. By 1961, Cushing was itching to play something other than a mad scientist or vampire hunter, and that's when this project came along. Cash on Demand began as a 1960 British television play called The Gold Inside, written by New Zealander Jock Gillies, who'd become a specialist at this kind of claustrophobic suspense. This one spins out in real time. Keep an eye on the clocks within the confines of the movie's single set, a suburban bank just before Christmas holiday. Gillies could have shared the story credit with Charles Dickens, since Cash on Demand is a crime story version of A Christmas Carol. Here, Ebenezer Scrooge is bank manager Harry Fordyce, memorably played by Peter Cushing as a mirthless martinet begging for comeuppance. Mr. Pearson, Fordyce's head clerk, as the Brits would say, is the stand-in for overworked and underappreciated Bob Cratchit. Richard Vernon is aces in the part, as are all the supporting staff who must weather the boss's condescension. What makes Cash on Demand soar beyond its modest means is its variation on the ghost of Christmas Present. He's a smooth operator named Colonel Gore Hepburn, who drops around the bank claiming to be a checker from the Home Office making a surprise inspection. This dapper and dignified gent has a surprise in store for the unflappable Fordyce. Andre Morell's performance puts Colonel Hepburn near the top of my list of charming movie villains. Cushing and Morell had a ball making this. They'd worked together before, most memorably in Hammer's 1959 version of The Hound of the Baskervilles, in which Morell was a savvy Watson to Cushing's snooty Sherlock Holmes. The tables are turned here, and the actors savor every droll morsel of the nerve-wracking script by David T. Chandler and Louis Griefer, which expands the original teleplay without an ounce of padding. Director Quentin Lawrence also did the original TV version. His sole feature film credit prior to this was another Hammer movie, 1958's The Trollenberg Terror, released in the U.S. as The Crawling Eye, a cult favorite about aliens invading Earth from within a cloud in the Swiss Alps. Cash on Demand is a more down-to-earth entertainment. Lawrence took an intriguing route to the director's chair, which I'll talk about more after the show. His direction here is taut and efficient, and he has the good sense not to let his direction get in the way of two actors performing at the top of their game. I extend a big thank you to Rita Belda, vice president at Sony Entertainment, who made it her personal mission to rescue and restore this film. She introduced me to it years ago, and it's been my pleasure to present it to scores of new fans over the past several years. Here are Peter Cushing and Andre Morell in Cash on Demand. Cash on Demand is a simple story that works on many levels. It's not just a suspenseful heist movie or merely a clever reworking of A Christmas Carol. It's also a carefully observed study of the hierarchical workplace, done in a particularly British style. Fordyce represents a certain type of small, insecure man, we have all known them, who finds his station in life as a fanatical functionary, lording power over his subordinates like a Gestapo commandant, not a branch manager. Although no backstory is given to Gore Hepburn, we don't even know if that's his real name, Andre Morel gives the character so many intriguing dimensions, we wonder if maybe he has some unspoken history with Fordyce. At times, he seems less interested in robbing the bank than he is in teaching Fordyce a lesson in humility. The dynamic between them is so complex it blurs the line between hero and villain. Which is which? Another thing notable about Cash on Demand is that it's virtually violence-free, which was certainly not the case with Hammer's most popular films. The electrodes to the head bit is exactly the kind of Grand Guignol-style gimmick associated with Hammer's horror movies, but it's never shown. The only bit of violence is when Hepburn slaps Fordyce to prove he means business. In this stiff upper lip setting, that slap has more impact than a dozen offhanded shootings in American crime flicks. The lack of violence is, of course, the entire point. Gore Hepburn would never be so low class as to bust in brandishing a weapon. Kudos to director Quentin Lawrence for resisting the temptation to open up the original play. It would have been an egregious mistake, for example, to show Hepburn's cohorts holding Mrs. Fordyce hostage, a mistake filmmakers with less savvy or more sadism would have made. By not showing it, we even get an extra level of intrigue. What if our charming mastermind is just making it all up and he's using actors to play the hostages? Director Quentin Lawrence went by the nickname Q. And though he might not have been the same Q who provided 007 with all those spiffy gadgets, Lawrence was employed by the British government. He'd been educated as an engineer, and during World War II, he was what Brits called a boffin. His scientific knowledge was used in wartime experiments, first with radar, then with atomic power. His expertise led to him being shipped to Secret City, USA, aka Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where he worked on the top-secret Manhattan Project. That's right, the director of Cash on Demand was one of the many scientists who helped develop the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. But of course, what he really wanted to do was direct. Lawrence used his government connections to get work as a technician on television in the mid-50s, and he soon realized his lifelong ambition to be behind the camera. Besides The Crawling Eye and Cash on Demand, he made early 60s thrillers like Playback and The Man Who Finally Died. His last feature was again for Hammer, The Secret of Blood Island, which, frankly, should remain a secret. Peter Cushing, of course, would become an icon of horror cinema. His career stretched into the 80s and thankfully wasn't limited to chasing vampires and ghouls. The younger generation probably knows him best for his role as Grand Moff Tarkin, Darth Vader's right-hand man in the first Star Wars movie. Due to advances in CGI, Cushing reprised the role in 2016's Rogue One, a Star Wars story, even though he'd been dead for more than 20 years. Be warned, there's lots more of that stuff coming. Well, I hope you found Cash on Demand a wonderful holiday treat and not a lump of coal in your stocking. Noir Alley is on hiatus next week, giving way to TCM's classic Christmas movie marathon. But don't worry, I'll be here with a noir, the 1947 MGM curio Lady in the Lake, starring Robert Montgomery and Audrey Totter. It's a film I've shown on Noir Alley, but this time I'm pairing it with some Yuletide cheer. See you next week.
Next on TCM, The Young Runaways, then The Big Cube, and later, Easy to Love. TCM gives you the hard sell tonight.